Hi everyone, I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, and welcome to the final Reading the World Conversation Series event for the spring season. We do 6 of these every year. We'll do 3 more in the fall, and we'll be sending out announcements about that sometime over the summer. But tonight, well, first, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, the National Endowment for the Arts, the New York State Council on the Arts, and the Arts and Colleges department, college thing. But I'd like to welcome to tonight Thomas Pletzinger and Ross Benjamin, who are here to talk about Thomas's new book, Funeral for a Dog, which just came out from Norton like a month ago, essentially, and has been getting tons and tons and tons and tons of praise. Thomas was born just outside of Cologne, and he's won a ton of awards for this book. He won the Uwe-Johnson Award in 2009. He's also recently the writer-in-residence at Grinnell College, and most notable and important to our event tonight is that yesterday he gave a reading at Boston in which his reading caused someone to be hospitalized because it was so amazing. So be prepared for hospitalization. Ross, on the other hand, is a translator from German who has translated a number of interesting books and got a lot of acclaim in a very short period of time. He translated Kevin Benneman's Close to Yedinu. Is that how you say it correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, fine enough. Yedinu, good. Joseph Ross, Job, Funeral for a Dog, and also Speaking of Boca by Michael Marr, which won the Helen and Kurt Wolff Translation Prize last summer. Right? So I'm going to get out of their way because they have a whole routine planned here. And I believe it begins with Thomas reading from the beginning of Funeral for a Dog, which is for sale in the back, by the way.
Okay. Thank you, Chad.
Thanks very much, Chad. Okay. The fainting part of that reading yesterday was quite shocking to me, so I almost fainted when I saw what happened. But she's fine, her jaw's broken, and seriously, I'm going to read that part, but I'll indicate when I'll start reading that part. So people who don't want to hear about blood or bones, please close your ears. But I'll start with some other part. I'll start with the beginning of the book. We'll be reading in English mostly, but I will read half a page for you in German, so people who understand German get the sound and the content, the rest only the sound. So I start with the beginning. It's postcards, actually. Written by my protagonist Daniel Mandelkern to his wife. Meine liebe Elisabeth, du willst wissen, wo ich gewesen bin? Ich schicke dir 7 Postkarten und einen Stapel Papier. 345 Seiten. Dieser Stapel handelt von mir und von der Erinnerung der Zukunft. Ich habe den ganzen Nachmittag gelesen und geordnet. Du hattest recht, Elisabeth, Svensson ist ein seltsamer Mann und ja, es gibt ja eine Geschichte. Svenssons Kinderbuch ist davon nur das letzte Kapitel. Er hat einen ganzen Geschichtenkoffer mit sich herumgetragen, einen Koffer voll Erzähltem und Verschwiegenem, voller Steine und Blüten. Ich habe davon gerettet, was ich retten konnte. Dieser Papierstapel sind meine Tage bei Svensson, meine Notizen und Interviews, Svenssons Wüste und sein Urwald, Bierdosen und Luftschlangen, Hunde, Ratten, Tauben, Möwen, Pferde, Raben, Schwäne, Schlangen, Falter, Fische, die getretenen Tiere der Schöpfung. Schwarz. Svenssons Tote, sein Serra Verde und sein Williamsburg. Okay. That's how it sounds in German. And now I'm going to go on with the actual beginning of the first chapter. This book is kind of difficult to summarize, especially in a short reading or in a short evening, like afternoon like this, because it has 2 protagonists and it's set in 5 different countries, and there's lots of connections between the actual scenes and anecdotes and little chapters. So we decided to quickly introduce one protagonist, and Ross will later tell you a little bit about the structure of the book, and then we introduce the other protagonist. So the first one is Daniel Mandelkern, an anthropologist and journalist who is drunk at the airport in Hamburg very early in the morning and no, he's not drunk, he's hungover. And yeah, I'll read a little bit from the beginning. August 6, 2005. And who exactly is Daniel Mandelkern? Elisabeth demanded a decision, and I left our apartment without making one. It can't go on like this. My flight to Milan doesn't leave Hamburg for an hour. I'm sitting alone and completely exhausted in the waiting area at Gate 8. On the other side of the airfield, the pines on the edge of Niendorf. At Gate 7, two Italian businesswomen are joking around. I get up, I have to move so I don't fall asleep. Somewhat farther down the corridor, a newsstand. I buy a newspaper, Süddeutsche Zeitung. I buy a postcard, image, Hamburg Volkspark Stadium, aerial view 1999. I see semicolon brand notebooks. The only other place that carries them is a stationery store next to the Academy of Fine Arts on Lerchenfeld, which is always an all-day trip, so I buy 3 of them. I buy cigarettes. I'm starting to smoke again now, because smoking reduces fertility. Smokers' sperm don't hold out as long. Eventually, their sperm give up. Cigarettes have gotten more expensive since my last pack. I buy coffee at a vending machine and go back to the gate. I tear the cellophane off the notebook and make a note of my fatigue and my headache. Then I make a note of the headlines in the Süddeutsche Zeitung of August 6 to 7, 2005. Caesarean risk, craze for mobile lifestyle, air in sunken mini-submarine running out. I'm writing because I always write when things get complicated. I'm alone, I could smoke. I could throw the notebooks into the garbage cans next to me, one red, one green, one blue, color-coded for trash separation. I should get up and go back to my wife. Samsonite. How I got here. Elisabeth and I didn't raise our voices. I left our apartment in the middle of the night and without closure. We fight in our indoor voices. Took the Svensson file from the kitchen table and carried my half-packed suitcase to the hallway, but then slammed the apartment door behind me much too hard and almost ran down the street in the light drizzle. Away from Elisabeth, the sound of the ridiculous rolling suitcase on the slabs of the sidewalk behind me is louder than expected. For your reporting trips, Elisabeth had said, putting the suitcase in my office. I turned off my phone so I could ignore her calls. She'll want to have the last word as always. Gave the taxi driver who took me from the Hohe Luft Bridge to the airport an absurdly high tip, ransom. At the only staffed counter in the otherwise empty terminal, I opened my suitcase and buried my phone between suits and shirts, between recording device and shaver. I stuck my toothbrush in my shirt pocket. The ground personnel seemed to have been waiting for me. Milan? Yes. Identification? Herr Mandelkern? Yes. As I began to explain myself and my more than punctual arrival, the Lufthansa agent gave me a routine laugh. As far as she was concerned, I could fold my whole life into my luggage as long as it stayed below the allowable weight limit. The scale showed 12.7 kilos. There was still a seat available on the earlier direct flight. Did I want it? Okay. At dawn, I was the only passenger at the security checkpoint. I put the 2 folders full of research at von Svensson next to my belt in the grey plastic tub. No, I said, I had nothing else with me. I had surrendered everything at check-in. The ring on my finger didn't set off any alarm. Now, I'm sitting here at 6:30 at the Hamburg airport in a nearly empty waiting area at gate 8, much too early, because I left our apartment in the middle of the night and without a word. I simply left. Okay, thank you.
I think it's really interesting for people to know how this book is structured and how what you were just reading actually looks on the page. You can sort of, the way I think of Funeral for a Dog was actually stated in the first lines of the book, but for those of you who didn't understand German, it is a stack of papers. It's a package that this main character, Mandelkern, sends to his wife. He starts off with 7 postcards, which Tomas read from in the beginning, and he sends his wife those 7 postcards, the notes he took while on this reporting trip, and some pages of a manuscript he found while on his reporting trip. He's been sent by his wife, who's his editor, to interview and profile famous children's book author named Dirk Svensson, who's the second protagonist that Tomas mentioned. And he has a tendency to write everything down in notebooks. And these notebook jottings are written in an interesting way. They all have headings, and he uses parentheses in at first a somewhat jarring way, and then becomes very natural for the reader to read, but a very original and innovative way. He inserts all these parenthetical associative snatches in his somewhat maybe hasty jottings in parentheses, and sometimes they're straightforward, sometimes they're a little more disjunctive, but it gives these notes he's taking a very free-flowing texture in which he goes back and forth between memories and anecdotes and taking notes on this actual reporting trip and this mysterious Svensson whom he meets in a ruin on Lake Lugano in Italy. Mm-hmm. And along with Svensson, there's a Finnish woman named Tulli and a young boy named Sami. Mm-hmm. And Mandelkern begins to uncover the mysterious circumstances that have led to this encounter on the lake, and ultimately finds this manuscript of Svensson, which in this stack of papers, Mandelkern has interspersed pages of this manuscript that he's made away with. And that gives the book its second voice, which is Svensson's voice, writing in the first person in his manuscript, interspersed with Mandelkern's pages of notes. And Svensson has attempted to write a sort of autobiographical novel or memoir. Ultimately, it's a failed manuscript, somewhat of a rough draft of a manuscript in which he's trying to come to terms with his past in ways that will become clear when you hear those passages. And in that way, you get these 2 distinct voices interweaving throughout this novel, and these 2 distinct